Hi, my name's Sharon Carpinello. I'm currently the Clinical Marketing Manager for GE Healthcare with the Centricity Perinatal product. My background includes being a labor and delivery nurse in the city of Cleveland, Ohio, that is, and also being a clinical educator, a Lamaze instructor, and lastly, a nurse manager. Today, I'm here to talk to you about transitioning from that nurse leader role in the hospital to being a nurse leader within the industry. So people always ask me, how did you transition from being a nurse manager into being a clinical application specialist with a large company? And the story is almost funny because initially when you start, you're like, what is this job really about? Because honestly, I didn't know. As I had said earlier, I just wanted to be on what I called my sabbatical, which 20 years later, I'm still on my sabbatical, right? My friends joke with me all the time. But initially when I started, I learned very quickly that it is very different in the industry and business world than being on the hospital. And that means in the hospital, as a nurse and as a nurse manager, a lot of times we get into a lot of conflict, not only with providers sometimes, but with hospital administration, sometimes nurses to nurses. And when I moved into the industry world, it was amazing. I would sit in a meeting and people would be like, well, what do you think? And I was like, you really want to hear what I have to say? And they all wanted to hear and understand. And I quickly learned that that's because they are not from the healthcare industry and that I really was hired for my knowledge of the labor and delivery space and being able to bring that nurse experience and that patient experience into an engineer's eyes. So I always get the question, where do you work? Because now that I don't go to a hospital every day, people are very intrigued by that. And I always share that I work from home or I'm in an airplane or I'm traveling. And people are always like, oh, you work from home, that must be great. And I always share that working from home is actually sometimes harder than going into a hospital every day. There is no 9 to 5 or 7 to 3. There's no commuter time. And there's no kind of wind down time, right? When you're going into the hospital, you're driving into the hospital, you kind of have that time to kind of collect your thoughts. When you're leaving the hospital, you have that commuter time to kind of let that all go and be able to go home and be with your family. When you're working from home, my commuter time is literally walking from my bedroom into my home office. So here are some tips. First tip is make a home office. So many friends of mine that started in the vendor industry are working from a kitchen table. That will not work. You need your own private space to call your home office. Also, set it up as a day. So when you get up, I think of my commuter time as that time in the morning. So I get up, I feed my dogs. Everybody that knows me knows I love my dogs. I eat breakfast, I shower, I get dressed. I then commute to work. So I go down the hallway, I actually go into the office, and I have a set routine every day. I also have a family. So in the beginning, it was really important for me to set up what I called family hours. So people see you sitting there and they're like, oh, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And I'd be like, I'm on a call. So I'd always set up some kind of family hours and have a signal for them to understand that I could not be disturbed at that time. Other things to remember is that it's hard to go from being on a unit where you're running around all day to being in an office, a home office, where you have to be disciplined, where you have to pay attention to calls. And that took a lot of training and self-discipline on my part. But now that I have it down packed, I love working from home. So one of the things I get asked all the time is, what is it that you don't like about being a nurse leader in the industry? And honestly, I love my job, I love the people I work with, and I love my customers. But one of the things that I miss a lot is co-interacting with people on a daily basis. And one of the things that I have done as a good tip is that I really try to get to know the people I work with. I try to incorporate into my daily routine, picking up the phone, asking someone about their family, asking about their dogs, something that you would actually talk with somebody and know if you worked side by side with them on the floor. The other thing is that we have something called instant messaging, and we ping frequently. And by doing that, that allows us to get in touch with someone very quickly. It's almost like sitting side by side with someone. Also, I've recognized that email is not always the answer. I typically will pick up a phone and call someone over just emailing them. So one of the things people ask me all the time is, are you still a nurse? And I get very offended with that. One of the things I love about being a nurse is that we can wear many different hats. And I think now being a nurse in the industry is so critically important. It's important to stay up to date on all the policies and procedures of the hospital, understand clinical workflow, and also stay involved with your professional organizations like Sonova and AWON, both of which I'm actively involved in. Lastly, I think what I do today, which I consider very important, is nurses, because it is important that we're there to help the nurses do their jobs, which is so important.